Simgiget sigidim ha nach gantkobo wilksit luam godi winge esam atama satun. We'll back soon. Good day, honored guests. It's my pleasure to be here on the unceded, ancestral, and current lands of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations. Territories that have held stories, laws, and teachings since time immemorial. My name is Lualgia Dumk Beast, or Angela Starrett, and it's a deep honor to welcome more than 2,000 participants from 63 countries to the Peace Begins at Home Summit, brought to you by the Center for Partnership Systems. Today, we're looking at how the blueprint of power learned in our closest relationships, especially in childhood, in our homes, ripples outwards into every system we live within. Gender relations, education, economics, media, governance, and of course, our very relationship with the land. We'll explore how to shift from patterns of domination, control, fear, and devaluation of care toward partnership, equity, reciprocity, and compassion, starting at home and scaling up. You'll hear from more than 26 changemakers across 17 countries, from neuroscientists, researchers, and psychologists to frontline activists, plus 6 remarkable young voices woven throughout the program. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to just welcome you all. It's incredible to see everyone coming together in this space for something we all desperately desire and deserve: peace. As we start the day, we'd love to see where everyone is joining us from. On the screen, you'll see a QR code. If you're watching on a laptop or desktop, just scan it with your phone to open the Mentimeter page. Or if it's easier, you can click the link in the chat. That will take you to a short page where you can type in where you're from. You don't need to enter your name. When you've submitted your answer, just return to this summit page to watch the word cloud appear live on screen. All right, let's take a moment to see our global community come into view. I see USA. We see the Georgia, see India, Canada, lots of incredible countries coming together, Australia, so many countries, all of us showing us that this is where peace truly begins, a worldwide circle connected from home to home. So as we arrive from so many different time zones, let's take a moment to truly arrive. In a virtual space like this, with our busy lives happening all around us, it's easy to stay half connected. So let's take a pause. Let's breathe and settle. What you're about to hear is a beautiful piece. It's a transformance composition gifted to us by Emmy Award-winning composer Gary Malkin. His work blends music, spoken word, and silence to help us slow down and open our hearts. This piece, Become Present, created with Sarah McCrum, invites us to land fully, to listen, to soften, and to open to what we're about to experience together.
As we open this virtual space, let's connect and be present with each other. Let's get to know each other with kindness and gentleness. Let's listen to each other with generosity in our hearts. Let's learn from each other with curiosity and wonder. We are a part of nature. We are a part of Earth. We are a part of life. May we use our time together to add to peace and truth and goodness in the world. May we honor the uniqueness and innate beauty of every member of this community. May we be united with each other. For the sake of ourselves and of all future generations.
Thank you, Gary and Sarah, for that moving piece and for helping us set the tone of the day. We're now going to step into the heart of the summit, a series of visionary keynotes that lay the foundation for everything ahead. These next voices will help us connect the personal to the global, revealing how the patterns we learn in our earliest relationships shape the world we build together. They'll invite us to see peace not just as the absence of conflict, but as the presence of care, equity, and connection, and remind us that the shift from domination to partnership truly begins at home. To open the day, we begin with a woman whose life work has inspired the summit, Dr. Riane Eisler. At 94 years old, Dr. Eisler continues to shape how the world thinks about peace, power, and partnership. A social systems scientist, cultural historian, and evolutionary theorist, she has dedicated her life to revealing how what we learn at home extends far beyond it. Her international bestseller, The Chalice and the Blade, translated into more than 25 languages, reframed human history through the lens of domination and partnership. It showed that the roots of injustice and violence are not inevitable, but learned, and that they can be unlearned. Her later work, The Real Wealth of Nations, expands that vision into economics. Archbishop Desmond Tutu called it a template for the better world we have been so urgently seeking. And Jane Goodall described it as a call to action. A child refugee from Nazi Europe, Dr. Eisler went on to earn degrees in sociology and law and teach at UCLA and deliver keynote addresses at the United Nations, parliaments, and universities around the world. She is the founder and president of the Center for Partnership Studies and the recipient of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation's Distinguished Peace Leadership Award, an honor she shares with the Dalai Lama. The very theme of this summit, Peace Begins at Home, is rooted in her life's work, showing how the way we relate in our homes and in our families shapes the world we build together. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Riane Eisler.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. As you all know, we are coming together here at this time of profound crisis. We see the rise of authoritarian regimes and increasing polarization tearing societies apart. Our planet is in peril, with accelerating climate disasters threatening us all. Young people are in crisis, struggling with mental health challenges, instability, fear, and doubt for their future, even whether they have one. And all over the world are wars and violent conflicts, from Ukraine to Gaza and Israel, Sudan, Ethiopia, the Congo, Myanmar, and beyond. Now, we have been taught to think of peace as only the absence of war. Actually, as just an interval between wars, something negotiated in policy rooms far from us. But peace is more than that. Peace is a way of relating to ourselves, to each other, to the systems we live in, and to our planet. And the first place we learn how to relate is in the home. This summit is an opportunity to look more deeply at the roots of our existential challenges. But I want to begin by thanking those who made this historic gathering possible. First, Gina Miltaldu, director of the summit, and her team, including Kurt Johnson and Roger Briggs, our extraordinary speakers, our organizational partners and advisors, our patrons and funders, Hubcast, our production partner, and finally you, our audience. Your presence tells me that you believe, as I do, that we can move to a more peaceful, sustainable, better world. And this summit is about how to do that. I want to start with just one example of how war and what happens in our homes are integrally connected. Did you know that in 2017, Russian President Vladimir Putin, an authoritarian strongman who launched the bloody war against Ukraine, signed a new bill that downgraded some domestic batteries from a criminal offense to just an administrative offense. Before this, any battery, slapping, hair pulling, or other violence that caused pain but not reported serious injury was a criminal offense. First-time offenders could face corrective labor for up to 6 months, community service for up to 360 hours, fines of 40,000 rubles or 3 months in jail. But now, these same acts are only an administrative offense with a very low fine, far less community service, and only 15 days of administrative arrest. Now think about what this means. A child or spouse can be beaten, hair pulled, slapped, punched, and it's no longer a crime. This regression reveals something profound. What happens in the home sets the template for society. When family violence is treated as less serious, even invisible, we normalize authoritarianism, violence, cruelty, and denial, not only in families, but at the social level, including war. We can no longer ignore the enormous global scale of family violence. According to UNICEF, 2 out of every 3 children worldwide are regularly subjected to violence in their own homes. That is 2/3 of the world's children learning that coercion and harm are normal, even moral, in the very place that should be safest. But here is the hope. Our brains are flexible. Neuroscience shows that we can unlearn patterns of fear and dominance and create new ones. So this summit is about not only family violence, but also about the systems it ripples into. Education, economics, governments, international relations, and our relationship with nature, and how we can change this. Because as Gandhi noted, we must not mistake the habitual for the normal. Now, I did not always see these connections, so I want to talk with you about my personal journey, because my research as a scholar is rooted in questions I asked as a child Holocaust survivor. The night the Gestapo came for my father in Vienna, I witnessed my mother's spiritual courage, the courage to challenge violence out of love. She recognized one of the Nazis as a young man who had worked for the family business, and by a miracle, her intervention secured my father's release. Shortly afterward, we fled to Cuba with nothing, and in the slums of Havana, I saw and experienced another form of violence, the violence of poverty amidst opulence. These early experiences planted a lifelong question. Why, when we humans have such a great capacity for empathy, for care, why is there so much cruelty and violence? Much later, after decades of whole systems, multidisciplinary research, I discovered the answer. And the answer is not found in the old social categories, not right versus left, not capitalism versus socialism. The real issue is domination versus partnership, which transcend all our conventional social categories, which we inherited from more authoritarian and violent times. A domination system is built on top-down rankings, man over woman, race over race, humans over nature, and yes, man over man. Fear and violence are normalized. caring and nonviolence are devalued as, quote, feminine and weak. Difference, beginning with the difference between the male and female forms in our species, becomes equated with superiority and inferiority, with dominating and being dominated. I want to give you a few examples of contemporary societies that orient closely to the domination scale of the partnership domination social scale, because it's always a matter of degree. Think of societies that in many other respects are very different. The Taliban and fundamentalist Iran, religious Eastern societies, Nazi Germany and Putin's Russia, Western rightist, mostly secular societies, Stalin's former Soviet Union, a leftist secular society. Despite their many other differences, all orient closely to the domination system, which, yes, includes the ranking of male over female and the devaluation of what we have been taught to think as feminine. A partnership system, by contrast, is grounded in equity and in mutual respect. Families and societies are more democratic. Caring is valued and economically rewarded. Gender equity and nonviolence are woven into every institution. The Nordic nations and Ireland are examples of contemporary societies that moved from domination to partnership. And as I will briefly talk about in a few minutes, for most of our social and cultural evolution, human society oriented more to partnership. But let's first talk about how we can shift from domination to partnership, even in this time when globally we see a regression to domination in so many places. To achieve this shift, we can't just keep putting band-aids on the present system, because its domination elements constantly create trauma, scarcity, suffering. And by doing this, we just maintain domination. To shift, we must look at root causes, at the 4 cornerstones that research shows shape all cultures, whether domination or partnership-oriented. The first cornerstone is family and childhood. Neuroscience confirms that what children experience and observe in their first years literally wires their brains. If they grow up in domination-oriented homes where fear and pain are normal, even moral, they will tend to carry these patterns into adulthood. So what we learn early on about love, about power, about fear, tends to become a blueprint for the systems we build. This is why peace begins at home. The second and related cornerstone is gender. If children see women, and therefore the traits coded as, quote, feminine, treated as less than, they internalize the template of dominance and submission that perpetuates inequality across all other differences, race, religion, nationality. What they learn is in-group versus out-group thinking and acting, and this is key to domination systems. Which takes us to the third cornerstone, economics. Many of us don't know that both Adam Smith and Karl Marx, the fathers of capitalism and socialism, just ignored the economic value of caring for people and nature. For both, as was the norm in their time, caring for people starting at birth was to be done for free by a woman in a male-controlled household. So today, GDP does not count that work in homes as productive, nor does it count a tree as productive. Only when the tree is dead, when it's a log, is it included in GDP and therefore valued. What we urgently need is a caring economics of partnerism that recognizes that caring for people and for nature as essential for our survival. The fourth, and again related cornerstone, is stories and language. We are taught stories that justify domination, original sin, selfish genes, blaming Eve or Pandora, woman, for all of humanity's ills. Even the term domestic violence makes the violence in homes and families seem less serious. We must change these narratives and terms, starting with calling violence in families what it is. Family violence. Change is possible. As I mentioned, Nordic nations, Finland, Sweden, Norway, they move toward gender equity, outlawing hitting children, investing in caring policies like paid parental leave and universal health care. These nations are among the happiest, most democratic, and most environmentally responsible nations. And they're not socialist. They have a healthy market economy precisely because they have caring policies. By contrast, in societies regressing toward domination, we see denial everywhere. Denial of climate change, denial of election results, denial of reality. And this denial begins in childhood, when children must deny the pain caused by those they depend on for food, for shelter, for life. Now, this summit does not claim to offer all solutions to war or systemic injustice. We honor the complexity of these issues, but we also know that to build a more peaceful, sustainable, and equitable world, we must understand how the root patterns of domination are seeded in the home and how they ripple outward across every major social and global system. Today, we will examine both the patterns of family violence and harm that begin in the home and the larger systems they shape, from education, media, and economics to governance, business, and our relationship with nature, with our Mother Earth. We'll explore how each of these can be shifted from domination to partnership. You will hear from extraordinary women and men across many fields, each helping us connect the dots between early patterns and the kind of world we live in. This is not about perfection, nor is it about blame. It is about creating the conditions where peace is practiced at every level of life. It is about reclaiming our heritage of partnership, because research, archaeological, mythical, even DNA research shows that for millennia, thousands of years before the 5,000 to 10,000 years after the cultural shift to domination, we lived in partnership-oriented societies well into the beginning of the early agrarian or Neolithic age. We have changed, and we can change again, this time from domination-oriented system to partnership-oriented system. The systems we inherited are not sustainable. We can choose partnership. And this is essential in our time of the threat of nuclear war, of climate change. We can reimagine peace, not just as the absence of war, but as the presence of care, equity, interconnection. Peace begins at home, starting today with each of us. I thank you for being here, for your courage, and for your commitment to building a better world, a partnership-oriented world.
What an absolutely incredible woman, and what a gift to have this start our summit today. Dr. Eisler, thank you so much for your powerful words and call to action for all of us to lean into partnership and compassion for each other, the planet, and the future. So let's take a moment to reflect on that together. Once again, you'll see a QR code on your screen. If you're watching on a laptop or desktop, just scan it with your phone to open the Mentimeter page. Or if it's easier, you can just click the link in the chat. You'll be asked one prompt. In one word, what does peace in the home mean to you? Type in your word, you don't need to enter your name, and then return to this summit page to watch our collective reflection appear live on the screen. So look at this already: international connections, happiness, achievable, compassion, safety, health, affection, compassion. Lots of people resonate with the notion of compassion, calm joy, possibility, kindness, joy and safety, respect. Looks like most people are thinking about safety, compassion, love, and partnership, drawing from Dr. Eisler's incredible keynote. Incredible. Thank you so much, everyone. One thing that I really took away from her keynote was reclaiming our heritage of partnership. Quote by Dr. Eisler. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. What words, so many words, testament to what the summit is really all about, and that's peace and partnership. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your reflections. And coming up next, we'll meet Ambassador Chowdhury. Well, our next speaker is the former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and High Representative of the United Nations, and is internationally recognized as an architect of the UN Culture of Peace initiative, adopted by the UN General Assembly 26 years ago in 1999. He's honored as bringing forth the UN SCR 1325 on women, peace, and security, where he was the president of the UN Security Council in March 2000. Ambassador Chowdhury is the founder of the global movement for the culture of peace. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Chowdhury.
Distinguished friends, colleagues, and fellow advocates of peace, greetings to you from New York, the city that hosts the United Nations headquarters. It's a joy and an honor for me to join you for this noble initiative, appropriately titled Peace Begins at Home Summit. Today's Transformational Global Summit is inspired by the life and work of Dr. Riane Eisler. I pay my wholehearted tribute to her lifelong contributions in the best interest of our world. I'm proud to say that her opening keynote presented just now will not only set the tone for the summit's day-long agenda, but also as a directional pathway for peace at home and for humanity. Also, a heartfelt word of praise for the summit director, Ms. Gina Milchiadu, for her understanding, diligence, and cooperation in facilitating my participation, and above all, for organizing efficiently today's summit. My address today will focus on that inspirational phrase: peace begins at home. It is a phrase we have all heard many times. Yet, if we pause and truly reflect on its meaning, we realize that within it lies humanity's greatest hope and the blueprint for our shared survival on a peaceful planet. Let me first address the meaning and empowerment behind the phrase. Peace begins at home is not a slogan. It is a concept, it is a philosophy, and a lived principle. It reminds us that peace is not confined to treaties or negotiations. It is not an abstract aspiration to be achieved by nations alone. Peace is something deeply personal. It begins in our hearts, within our families, and extends outward to our communities, to our nations, and of course, to the world at large. The seed of peace exists in every human being. When nurtured by understanding and compassion, that seed can flourish. Home is where that nurturing begins. It is in our homes that we learn kindness, patience, forgiveness, and the value of listening to one another. These lessons form the moral foundation upon which peaceful and inclusive societies are built. The home teaches us how to share and how to reconcile differences. It is where empathy is first learned and where respect is modeled. In that sense, every home has the potential to be a fertile training ground for peace. Now, let me talk about realizing peace from within. Throughout my years of service to the United Nations and my experiences in many parts of the world, I have come to a simple but profound understanding. Peace cannot be imposed from outside. It must be realized from within. From Sierra Leone to Sri Lanka, from Paraguay to the Philippines, I have met individuals whose quiet dignity and commitment to nonviolence have been far more powerful than any policy or formal resolution. Their strength lies in their inner peace. They do not wait for governments or institutions to deliver harmony. They live it daily through compassion and care for others. When individuals internalize peace and nonviolence, the result is a wider awakening, a collective consciousness that transcends barriers of culture, faith, and geography. Let us now discuss families as the first peace builders. If peace truly begins at home, then families are the first peace builders. Within the family, a child first encounters the concepts of justice and fairness, love and empathy, tolerance and trust. Mothers, in particular, have played an immeasurable role in this process across generations and societies and cultures. As I have often said, without peace, development cannot be realized. Without development, peace is not achievable. But without women, neither peace nor development is even conceivable. Women's influence begins in the home but extends far beyond it. Their vision, strength, and compassion are indispensable in fostering the culture of peace, which in reality begins at home. When women are empowered, families and societies thrive. I will now focus on early childhood, the seedbed of peace. It is in the earliest years of life that the values of peace and nonviolence are absorbed most deeply. The attitudes formed in childhood towards fairness, cooperation, and respect for difference and diversity remain throughout life. That is why peace education must truly begin at home, long before formal schooling. Through tone of voice, example, and small daily acts, parents and caregivers transmit lessons that become part of a child's moral fabric, a solid foundational mindset. As we often emphasize in the work of the global movement for the culture of peace, early childhood is development is the beginning of peace building in the true sense. Let me address the role and contribution of homes towards early childhood development. The home environment is the single most influential context in shaping a child's cognitive, emotional, and social growth. From the earliest months of life, a child's brain architecture is formed through responsive interactions, through eye contact, gentle words, and consistent affection. These daily exchanges build the foundations of empathy and trust, the same qualities that later enable cooperation and peaceful behavior. When the home provides safety, love, and predictable care, it does not merely prepare a child to succeed, it prepares that child to be humane. For this, I believe that early childhood affords a unique opportunity for us to sow the seeds of transition from the culture of violence to the culture of peace. The events that a child experiences early in life, the education that this child receives, and the community activities and socio-cultural mindset in which a child is immersed all contribute to how values, attitudes, traditions, modes of behavior, and ways of life develop. We need to use this window of opportunity to instill the rudiments that each individual needs to become agents of peace and nonviolence from an early life. Homes also serve as the first laboratories for emotional learning. The child who observes nonviolent communication, mutual respect between parents, and fairness in family decision making develop a natural orientation towards dialogue rather than domination. When conflicts at home are resolved through listening and understanding, young minds learn that peace is practical, not abstract. Thus, every home becomes not only a nurturing space, but also a civic classroom where the culture of peace is lived, not taught. Let us talk about the idea from home to humanity. When we cultivate peace in our homes, we create the foundation for peace in our communities, our nations, and our world. This is the essence of what we call the culture of peace. The culture of peace, as recognized by consensus by the United Nations in 1999, defines peace not simply as the absence of conflict, but as a dynamic process of dialogue, empathy, and cooperation. It calls for transformation, individual, collective, and institutional, rooted in nonviolence, equality, solidarity, and respect for diversity. Simply put, the culture of peace as a motivation means that every one of us needs to consciously make peace and nonviolence a part of our daily existence. We should not isolate peace as something separate or distant. We should know how to relate to one another without being aggressive, without being violent, without being disrespectful, without neglect, without prejudice. Now let me focus on education, the engine of transformation. A central pillar of this transformation is education. Education that develops not only intellectual but also character and conscience. Even never has it been more important to understand the world and appreciate its diversity. Education for peace, tolerance, and global citizenship must be woven into the very fabric of learning. Every classroom, every curriculum, and every conversation can reinforce the principles that lead to peaceful coexistence. Let me now touch on spirituality and human connection. There is another dimension to peace that deserves emphasis, the inner spiritual one. As I shared at a Hiroshima Nagasaki interfaith peace gathering recently, one of the greatest poverties of our age is not material, it is spiritual. It is the feeling of being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. The only cure for such poverty is love and compassion. True spirituality, whatever form it takes, elevates us to a higher consciousness. It helps us see others not as adversaries, but as fellow travelers sharing a common humanity. When spirituality and empathy guide our actions, our homes and societies become places of healing rather than hatred. I would now share my thoughts on women and youth, catalysts for a peaceful future. The call that peace begins at home also reminds us that sustaining peace depends on those who nurture it, women and youth. In my capacity as the President of the UN Security Council in March 2000, I had the honor to initiate the process that led to the adoption of the landmark resolution 1325 on women and peace and security. It was the first time the Security Council recognized that peace is inextricably linked to gender equality and that women's full and equal participation at all decision making levels is essential to durable peace. Empowered women bring new breadth, quality, and balance of vision to peace processes and to governance. Likewise, when youth are educated in nonviolence and empathy, they carry forward a legacy of hope and moral clarity for generations to come. Let me now share my expectation for a world of homes in harmony. Let us vision a world where every home is a sanctuary of peace, where children grow up free from fear, where women and men share equal dignity, and where compassion guides daily choices. If each of us tends the flame of peace within our own hearts and homes, together we can illuminate the world. As I have said often, one voice creates a ripple. Many ripples make a wave. Collectively, our voices for the culture of peace can transform humanity. Let me conclude by focusing on our shared responsibility. Peace will not come as a gift from above. It must be built patiently, brick by brick, day by day. The culture of peace is not a quick fix. It is a movement, not a revolution. It asks of us not perfection, but persistence, not grand gestures, but daily consistency in kindness, fairness, and empathy. So let us begin where we are with ourselves, with our families, and with our communities. Let us make peace begins at home not just an inspiring phrase, but a lived truth. If each home becomes a source of compassion, if each heart becomes a wellspring of understanding, then together we can realize the immense and enduring benefits of peace for the human family as a whole, for all of our peoples, and for our beautiful planet. I thank you sincerely for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Chowdhury, for that and for the reminders that peace will take persistence. Our next voice brings ancestral ways of knowing that have long been modeled by cooperation, balance, care, and connection. Dr. Lyla June Johnston of the Diné, Navajo, and Cheyenne and European heritage is a poet, musician, and human ecologist and scholar whose work weaves Indigenous wisdom with contemporary insight, healing across cultures, communities, and ecosystems. With degrees from Stanford and a doctorate focused on Indigenous food systems and human ecological design, her work bridges ceremony, scholarship, and song to invite us all into deeper relationships. Please join me. Give her a warm welcome, Dr. Lyla June Johnston.
Hello, hello. Yat shik aro Diné nanisht tachitin shle aro spashishin ashin hedishichedo bilagana dashinale akwit ego naukadi and Diné asa shle. I'm really, really happy to be here today. I'm really, really honored that each of you would take the time to let me share some of the beautiful things about Diné culture that are very related to this entire conversation about how we can be more connected to the spirit of collaboration and the spirit of cooperation. Indigenous peoples, as you know, of what I call Turtle Island, other people call it the United States or North America, but we call this continent Turtle Island. We know we've been here hundreds of thousands of years, but archaeology can prove so far that we've been here for tens of thousands of years. Specifically, they just found footprints in New Mexico that are 23,000 years old. But we've been here a long, long time, and we've had a lot of time to learn, actually through trial and error, why peace is so important and why we're so much better off when we collaborate. So Diné people are no exception. We went through a lot of trials, a lot of fires to get to the point where we understand that peace is the better option of the two. And one of the outgrowths of that is a very deep respect for women. So when I spoke my language, when I first started, I was naming all of my clans, which essentially are the clans of my 4 grandparents. And the first clan that I start with is my matrilineal clan. So my mother's mother and what her clan is and was. And that would be the Nanisht Tachitni clan. So that is, even though I have 4 clans, I keep track of 4 of them. Technically, that one is who I am. That is what I am. And we use the verb nishle to say that I am that. And so in that sense, we get our last names not from our fathers, but from our mothers. And so when we get our last name from our mothers, we become really connected to the matrilineal history or herstory, and we really keep track of that. Whereas the patrilineal line can get lost within a couple generations. You can kind of forget who your great grandpa's on your patrilineal side, what his clan was, but you really know that your mother's mothers were all Nanisht Ejitrachitni, and that is how that clan was born. Was that somewhere way back there, one of your foremothers created that clan and created that lineage. And so that's just one way that we honor women. Another big way that we honor women is we have a womanhood ceremony that's 4 days long. The manhood ceremony is 1 day long, and that's not to say the manhood ceremony isn't as important. It's equally important. It's just to say that the womanhood ceremony is very important to our people. It is very elaborate. It is very involved. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort on behalf of the community to honor the birth of this young woman and to help her to create to help create the conditions in which she understands that she is celebrated, she is loved, that she is cared for by the people, and that we are going to be there for her for the rest of her life. And I can get into the details of that ceremony just a little bit. I can't go too deep because some information is best learned in person, ceremonial information. But what I will say is that the reason why honoring women is so important and is so related to collaboration and to synergistic societies is because the feminine gives life, just plain and simple. And that is a very sacred thing. And she bears life, and she births life, and she cares for life. The men also help a lot too. And the men and the women are equal. In Diné culture, there's none of this sort of gender Olympics of like, well, men are better, or no, women are better. Da, da, da. We are complementary, and we need each other, and we cannot exist apart from each other. And so, just like the stars in the sky, the Big Dipper, the Pleiades constellation is the male constellation, and Cassiopeia is the female constellation. And we notice those two constellations revolve around the North Star together. And so that's how we see the masculine and the feminine, as these two constellations that work together to create harmony in the sky and on Earth. And so these things are 100% equal, and they are needed by our children to be in collaboration with one another. And so the collaboration between the masculine and the feminine is very strong within our cultures. And part of that collaboration, if you talk to Diné men, I know we're also known as Navajo. If you talk to Diné men, they will say, they have no qualms honoring women. Like my dear friend Roberto, not Lewis, he's a fantastic brother. He and all of his contemporaries, they will say things like this routinely. They'll say, well, we have to ask the clan mothers what to do. Because yes, I'm a leader in the community, and I build hogans and I build ceremonial structures, and I'm a strong, capable man. And I have to consult my clan mothers to get guidance from them, to get direction from them, the same way one would consult their grandmother as a young man, and listen to her and really take stock of what she's saying and really appreciate her. That is very, very common among Diné men, and they're not only not threatened by women, they're overjoyed by women. They're nourished by women. They're so excited to be with women, and they're so appreciative when women are around them and they get to listen to them. And it's not just the clan mothers, it's even the young women who are the leaders and the activists and the dreamers and the visionaries. Roberto loves to honor them. And I think Roberto is a really good example of a Diné man. And there's thousands of them throughout our reservation, who just really, they just enjoy working with women and seeing how women can help guide them in what to do. And they have no problem taking direction from women. In fact, traditionally, Diné women are leaders, and it's really not a big deal. Nobody bats an eye. It's not scary, or, in Western culture, I noticed it causes this whole stir in the pot, and we have to sit down and talk about it and create DEI things about it. And it's like, in Diné culture, it's just a given that the women are here, that the women are leaders, that the women are our friends, and like, it's okay to let them lead. Another thing within Diné culture is that divorce. Europeans were very shocked when they saw this, but in our culture, we also have marriage, and we also have what you might call divorce. And in Diné culture, it's understood. It is simply understood by all men, all women, all non-gender conforming people, that if a woman is done with a marriage, she puts his saddle by the door, his horse saddle. That's the old metaphor for, okay, I'm done. You need to leave now. And this is respected within within Diné culture, believe it or not. If a woman is done, she's done. And that's just how it is. And so I'm not saying that women should overpower men by any means. I'm saying that this is how deeply Diné people respect women. that they afford her all kinds of rights and responsibilities. And the womanhood ceremony is a deeply involved community endeavor to get people to connect to the value of women and the value of young women. And you have your womanhood ceremony when you get your first menstruation. And so when I was 14, I got my first menstruation. I got it a little bit late. My mom appreciates that because it gave her more time to prepare for the ceremony. But I got my first blood, and lo and behold, everyone got all excited and, oh my God, we have to stop everything. And my community came for me for 4 days, and we stopped everything. And they trained me hard. I mean, I had to run every day. I had to grind corn every day. I created a massive corn cake that was, used to feed the people. And they taught me my power to give life to a nation. And they taught me how to be humble, how to be gentle, how to be, like they said, you don't need to be a great woman. You just need to be a decent woman, a humble woman, and be a good woman. And that was such a huge teaching, and they told me all kinds of beautiful things. And on the last day, they sang all night. They sing all night long to celebrate this birth of a new woman. And that song is very much a gift to the people and to the young woman and the rest of her life. And after singing all night on the fourth day, I made my final run, which was my run to the east. And I ran and ran and ran and ran and ran all the way back. Because each time you run a little bit further. And your people are teaching you tenacity. Your people are teaching you how to improve, how to grow. And those prayers that were set down for my life when I was 14, I'm sure had an incredible impact, because now I have my PhD. I'm 13 years sober, which is a whole other story of how I got sober and how my people are in a very intense drug war right now of the colony and colonization drugging our communities and the struggles we have to get out of these addictions. But and I have just a beautiful life, and I overcame so much adversity just to be sitting here today. I mean, every kind of abuse you can imagine. But I think that ceremony was just a slice of time where I felt the true message of my ancestors, which is that you matter as a woman, and your power and your peace matter, and your ability to serve your people matters. And so in that sense, I had a really, really good time in my ceremony. And I think that all of this protection of women, unfortunately, for much of Western society, is hard to even imagine. But we need to get there. And it was through thousands of years of trial and error that my ancestors learned that honoring women and uplifting women is the smartest thing we can do for longevity's sake, for the sake of the health of our communities. Because when the women are healed, the world will heal. This is what my elders tell me. And because the women are such a bedrock, such a foundation of life, and it behooves the masculine, and it strengthens the masculine, and it overjoys the masculine when the feminine is healthy and happy and protected and safe. And that's our deepest, highest calling as Homo sapiens, is for the masculine and the feminine to see one another and to look each other in the eyes with humility and gratitude and to honor each other. And that is, according to our cultures, the foundation of peace. And that is how we become progenitors of peace. And the last thing I'll say before I end is that the Lakota have a similar teaching. The Lakota people, they have the sacred pipe, and the stone part of the pipe represents the feminine, and the wooden part of the pipe represents the masculine. And this was given to them by a prophet, you could say, named White Buffalo Calf Woman, many generations ago, countless generations ago. And she said, and the people were going through famine, they're going through discord, there was upheavals, social upheavals, economic upheavals. I mean, it was just a mess, apparently, according to the stories. And when she came, she gave them this pipe and she said, this is how you're going to heal. The connection between the masculine and the feminine. If you can fix that, you can fix everything. And I thought that's very interesting. And it might be hard for us to wrap our heads around right now, but I really trust these things. That why would, of all the things she could have given us, would she have given us this message that the nexus points between the masculine and the feminine must be healed for peace and health and well-being to occur among the nation? But I think that's true. I think it was true then, and it's true for us today, that the more we can honor women, and normalize that within our societies, and even institutionalize it through our rites of passage and our ceremonies, etc., the more healthy and happy we will all be. So I know that's a hard mandate or challenge for me to set before us, because we live in a highly a world that is not that, let's just say. But I don't think that means we should stop fighting for it. I think we should all continue to fight for it every day, because whether it takes 5 generations or 15 generations, this is something we're going to have to figure out together. And so why not start now? So thank you all for your time, and I hope you all have a very wonderful day. And again, I just so appreciate Dr. Riane Eisler for everything that you do, and for allowing me to be here with you all today. It's a huge honor. So talk to you soon. Thank you. Hagone.
Much for your wisdom, for your teachings, for your power, and for reminding us that cooperation and partnership is in our DNA as Indigenous people. It's why we are called to remember and reclaim those sacred connections and laws within us. Well, we now turn to our voices of the future, young leaders whose reflections will appear throughout the day. Their presence has been advanced by Olivia Hansen, our Youth Voices champion, whose voice is to amplify youth perspectives on the global stage. First, we'll have from Afghanistan, Mursalina Amin, founder of the Girls Toward Leadership organization, speaking to the power of education and bravery that it takes to lead in the face of restriction. She's followed by Joseph Akilimali from the Democratic Republic of Congo, co-chair of the Congolese Coalition for Youth, Peace and Security, whose message is a call for unity, showing how young people can drive peace even amid conflict. Together, their voices remind us that partnership is not just an aspiration. The next generation is already living it.
Hi, my name is Mursalina Amin. I was born right after the Taliban's first regime in Afghanistan. For much of my childhood, I saw hope growing around me. Girls were going to school, women were entering universities, and new opportunities were opening for us that our mothers could only dream of. I was part of the generation who believed that education could change everything, not just our lives, but our country as well. I started my civic engagement activities young. Even as a teenager, I started noticing something. In programs, youth conferences, leadership circles, I rarely saw Afghan girls. I kept asking myself, where are our voices? Why aren't we represented in the spaces shaping the future that we dream of? The question led me to create Gospel Leadership Organization. I didn't start it because I had all the answers. I started because I had a vision to give Afghan girls the chance to lead, to connect, and to believe in their own potential. G2O began as a small initiative, a number of youth coming together to discuss solutions and problems that youth were facing in the community. But it grew into something much bigger, a movement that empowers Afghan girls through mentorship, education, and advocacy. It is a community that reminds every girl that her voice matters and that leadership starts the moment she chooses to use it. Then came 2021. When the Taliban returned to power, everything changed almost overnight. Girls were banned from secondary school and university. Women were pushed out of jobs and public life. The progress we witnessed for 2 decades seemed to vanish in a single moment. It was heartbreaking to see classmates with dreams of becoming politicians, professors, ambassadors, or anything suddenly told to stay at home, to use to see the future that once felt limitless become uncertain again. But even in the darkness, Afghan girls did not lose hope, did not give up. They began teaching each other in secret classrooms. They kept learning online, creating study groups, and holding on to hope, quietly, bravely, and persistently. The girls in our G2 they have kept telling me they can close our schools, but they cannot close our minds. And that has always stayed with me because it captures everything about Afghan girls stand for resilience, courage, and refusal to be silenced. Through G2L, I have seen that when we empower one girl, we empower a whole community. A girl who gains confidence becomes a mentor. A girl who learns becomes a leader or a teacher. And together they become leaders and lead, not someday, but now. To my peers, young people everywhere, I want to say you don't have to wait until you have experience or permission to lead. Start where you are. Use what you have. Your voice can open doors not only for you, but for people around you as well. And to our elders, allies, and partners, Afghan girls need you to believe in their leadership, not just their survival. Support Afghan led organizations and businesses. Invest in girls' education. Stand beside us, not as saviors, but as partners in peace. Because when we empower girls, we empower the future. When girls learn, communities thrive. And when girls lead, peace follows. Afghan girls, even in toughest situations, haven't never given up on the world, and the world must not give up on them. Thank you.
Je suis honoré de prendre la parole aujourd'hui en tant que jeune engagé pour la paix, secrétaire exécutif for PDRC et initiateur du colloque sous-régional Jeunes pour la paix dans la région des Grands Lacs. Ma présence ici n'est pas seulement celle d'un individu, mais celle de toute une génération qui refuse d'être spectatrice et qui choisit d'être actrice du changement. Parler de la jeunesse comme actrice de paix n'est pas seulement reconnaître son nombre ou son énergie, c'est surtout admettre que notre avenir collectif dépend de la place que nous donnons aux jeunes dans les processus de paix et de sécurité. Être un jeune leader engagé dans ces domaines signifie d'abord refuser l'étiquette de victime ou de problème pour revendiquer notre rôle de constructeurs, d'innovateurs et de bâtisseurs des pauvres. Dans un contexte comme celui-ci de la région des Grands Lacs, marqué par des décennies de conflits, d'exclusion et de méfiance, notre engagement prend un sens profond. Il s'agit de réparer ce qui a été brisé, de recréer la confiance entre les communautés et d'ouvrir de nouvelles perspectives de coexistence. À travers UFOPDRC, nous avons appris que la paix ne se décrète pas. Elle se construit au quotidien, dans les quartiers, les écoles, les espaces publics, là où les jeunes vivent, rêvent et parfois désespèrent. C'est dans ces espaces que nous avons choisi d'agir, en organisant des dialogues interreligieux, interculturels, en accompagnant le jeune leader communautaire, en transformant l'art et les médias en outils de sensibilisation, en donnant la parole à ceux qu'on n'écoute pas assez. Être un jeune leader pour la paix, c'est aussi accepter un double défi, celui d'inspirer nos peurs à croire en leur pouvoir d'agir, et celui de convaincre les institutions que notre place, c'est autour de la table des décisions, pas dans la salle d'attente. La résolution 2250 du Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies nous a donné la légitimité, mais c'est de notre engagement quotidien qui lui donne vie. Et c'est précisément pour cela que la jeunesse est essentielle dans tout partenariat véritable pour la paix, parce qu'elle incarne la résilience, parce qu'elle porte des approches nouvelles et audacieuses, et parce qu'elle crée des pots là où d'autres ont érigé des murs. Les jeunes ne viennent pas remplacer les acteurs traditionnels des paix. Ils viennent les compléter, les bousculer parfois, et surtout renouveler les imaginaires. Si nous voulons une paix durable, nous devons cesser de considérer la jeunesse comme un public à sensibiliser, à commencer à la voir comme un partenaire stratégique à impliquer de la conception, la mise en œuvre et l'évaluation des politiques de paix et de sécurité. Mon message aujourd'hui est simple. Faire confiance à la jeunesse. Offre-lui des espaces, des ressources et une place réelle dans les décisions. Parce que là où les jeunes sont impliqués, la paix n'est plus un vœu pieux. Elle devient une possibilité réelle. Je vous remercie.